The simple answer is no. Welcome to part 2 of the Archaon diorama. I was doing a lot of pondering about how to make this diorama look really good. I'd already screwed up this model about 2-3 years ago when I got it on eBay for it was a bit of an expensive price. I was more than happy to get it to fulfill my nostalgia wish of, you know, a 12-year-old boy going through pages of White Dwarf and absolutely adoring this miniature, and I really wanted to get it and do it in a way that was going to do service to my childhood nostalgia. I was pondering about putting LEDs or a single LED inside of the diorama. It kind of triggered a bit of a thought for me. I think a lot of people are a bit afraid to do LEDs in dioramas and miniatures. To start with, I used a 4.5mm drill bit and drilled a hole all the way through down to the base. It would be very, very useful if you double check that your drill has charge. Yeah, this is actually quite a essential part of how to do this, is actually having a drill that has enough power to drill a hole, which I did not. So just check that. I drilled a 4.5mm hole. I was using a 3mm LED, but the 3mm span is the top of the LED, not the whole circumference of it. You're going to want to measure the actual width of the LED before you go in and put it in. I used a 19mm circular drill bit to carve out enough room for the button and the power supply. I'm actually marking it with a bit of tape so that way I know the right depth to go in with this tool, because the last thing I wanted to do was go into aggressively and drill in holes that punched all the way up into the diorama. To be honest, I probably should have done this before I did the actual build in terms of the diorama itself, but you live and learn. This was the first time doing it on a wooden platform. This is the first diorama I've done on a little wooden plinth. In future, I probably would do this the other way round. It's also kind of helpful to do it this way because I wasn't too sure where I would want to place the LED just yet, and it helped to have that detail sorted before I put it down, because I was contemplating having more, but in the end I just decided to stick to one where the water effects will be, and that will really reflect and really permeate the light. It will hopefully give off a really eerie effect. Make sure to always keep your area clean, especially your kitchen, because you will get in trouble with your partner for drilling and spreading sawdust everywhere. You can save up the sawdust and have a crack at making your own flock for cheap, which is what I plan to do with this lot. I actually ended up with quite a fair bit for a couple of small holes. If you like this video so far, or whether you don't like this video so far, please just give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It means an awful lot to the channel. Now comes the really fun part, and that is testing your LED and making sure that it still works. The battery pack and button is a set that I got from Green Stuff World. I think it was about £3 for this little switch and set. You can probably get them from other places a little bit more cheaply, but this is a perfectly good set if you just want 1 or 2 LEDs and you don't want to fuss about how to do it. If you're ever confused, just remember that the short leg of the LED is the black wire negative, the long leg is the red leg, which is the positive. Always make sure that you're double checking, triple checking that this LED works. There's nothing worse than getting it glued in with hot glue or super glue and then realising either the LED's bust or there was something wrong with the cabling. It's just an absolute nightmare. You can see I'm not using any solder. I've just stripped the insulation back, given myself enough wire to wrap it around nice and tight and get a good connection that way. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way. You don't need to invest in a soldering iron for LED lights inside miniature models. You really don't. If it's going to get a battering, then sometimes it is worthwhile doing a good soldering job. But shrink downs will do the job for you. They will keep it in there. Now, if you don't have a heat gun, you can use a lighter, but I would be careful with using a lighter because it's very, very easy to damage the LED if you're using a lighter. This Tack Life heat gun, I think it cost me about £12 on Amazon. It's nice and cheap, and it's a tool that I've ended up using all of the time, so it's really worth picking up one. I decided to try and fit it in with as much hot glue as I possibly could, because I'm going to be using a lot of clear resin, and the last thing I want is for the clear resin to drip down, go through that hole and end up spilling out everywhere, because it could potentially ruin the whole diorama, and I will be absolutely livid if that happens. I'm trying to make sure that there's enough room. I hot glue most of the wires down just to make sure they're not going to wobble around, but as you can see, it looks really good, and I'm hoping it's going to look better with water effects. So that's how to do a very simple LED circuit. One LED, there's already a switch, already a power supply. If you want to do something a little bit more complicated, it's not that more difficult, especially if you're using shrink downs. It makes things nice and easy, and you don't have to mess around with a soldering iron or burning yourself, which is always a plus side, because I always burn myself quite severely when I attempt to use a soldering iron due to ye old shaky hands. Now that the build and the LED is in, it's just time to paint this. So I've got it zenithal primed, highlighted, and I'm just ready to get cracking. So hopefully that will be coming probably in about a week or so as I go through the process, because I want to do it as two separate models. I want to paint Archaon with oil paints so I can get all of those lovely smooth transitions, and do the base, the actual diorama base, in a different fashion. Try to keep everything uniform, but I'm really looking forward to showing you guys this stuff. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.